Earth's surface is now contaminated with ionizing radiation, which is slowly spreading all over the globe. Augustine refuses to go with the authorities since he is already suffering from a terminal illness and doesn't have long to live. They remind him that without regular transfusions, he won't last longer than a week. A woman is yelling that she cannot find her daughter, and her friend assures her that she saw her daughter leave on an earlier helicopter. Everyone leaves, and Augustine spends his final days in solitude at the facility. He watches the radiation slowly moving toward the facility. Augustine spends his time giving himself transfusions, taking his medicines, sleeping, and staring up at the night sky. A flashback shows a young Augustine giving a talk about K23, a previously unknown moon of Jupiter that he has discovered. Augustine explains that the characteristics of the moon are nearly perfect for supporting life. After the presentation, Augustine is approached by a beautiful young woman named Jeanne, and the two begin a flirtatious relationship. On their second date, Jeanne asked Augustine how much of his research about K23 is actually real and practical, and how much of it is just nonsense, taking Augustine by surprise. In the present, Augustine checks to see which space missions are still active, and finds that all of them are inactive except for Ether, which is a manned mission returning to Earth after exploring K23. Augustine wishes to communicate with the mission, but it won't be in range for another 11 hours. Augustine seems particularly drawn to a member of the mission named Sullivan. Aboard the Ether ship, Sullivan, or Sully, wakes up and greets crew members, Aide, Mitchell, and Sanchez. The Ether has been unable to communicate with the Earth for 3 weeks, and after thorough troubleshooting and trying every major receiver across the globe, the crew is unable to understand why. Sully also points out that a colony ship headed for K23 was supposed to leave Earth a week ago, but she can't contact them either. On Earth, Augustine is making a bowl of dinner for himself when he turns around and sees a half-eaten bowl is already on the table. For a minute, he gets suspicious and looks around, but then he just assumes that it's a bowl he made himself earlier and forgot. Next, Augustine is working when the fire alarm goes off. He finds the fire in the kitchen and puts it out. Tired, he sinks to the floor and finds a little girl hiding there. He is shocked. He quickly gets on the radio and tries to contact the authorities so they can come and rescue the girl, but he is unable to reach anyone. He tells the girl that someone is going to come and get her because he cannot help her. He is the wrong person. Feeling bad for scaring the poor girl, Augustine makes her some dinner and asks her questions about herself and her family, but she doesn't answer. He assumes that she can't speak. She draws an iris to tell Augustine that her name is Iris. Next, Ether comes within contact range, and Augustine rushes to communicate with them, but he is still unable to establish contact. He explains to Iris that K23 was supposed to be humanity's next home, but they couldn't get the colonizing missions out in time due to the disaster, and now he has to warn the crew of the Ether about what has happened here on Earth before it is too late, and they land on the dying planet. At night, Iris comes to sleep in Augustine's room, despite his protests against it. Next, Augustine works on the antenna and discovers that it is simply not strong enough to reach the Ether. He eats dinner with Iris, but she insists on playing games with her food, and Augustine complies. On the Ether, the captain of the crew, Adair, records his log and explains that since they can't provide any reason for every communication station on Earth being down, they have assumed that the problem must lie on their end, and they are working on figuring it out. He also confirms that their mission was successful, and they have discovered that K23 is habitable. Back on Earth, Augustine is performing his regular transfusion, and Iris arrives in the room. She lays down next to him, and he shows her the North Star and tells her all about it. A flashback shows a young Augustine working, and Jean arrives to see him. She asks him why he didn't answer her call, and he says he was working without turning around to look at her. She is hurt, but doesn't show it. She tells him they don't need to worry, because she is not pregnant. It was a false alarm. Augustine still doesn't turn around or show any kind of reaction. Crying, Jean says that she understands that Augustine wants to be an explorer who discovers new worlds and gives life hope. But in the midst of all that, his own life is slipping away from him. In the present, Augustine learns that the ionizing radiation has reached the observatory quicker than he anticipated. He discovers that there is another facility further north from here, which is a weather station and has an antenna that is strong enough to contact the Ether. The journey is difficult, but it's the only way that Augustine will contact Ether, and anyone who might be able to rescue Iris. He packs his transfusion machine among other necessities, puts protective equipment on himself and Iris, and the two head out. On the Ether, crew member Maya is living one of her memories through holographic technology when Sanchez arrives and curiously watches. She tells him all about her friends in the memory. Mitchell is watching a romantic movie and missing his wife. Sully and Aide are playing a game of cards when suddenly an alarm goes off all over the ship, and it is revealed that there is a problem with navigation and the ship has veered off course. The crew works to chart a new course toward Earth, but it goes through areas that haven't been mapped, and they have no idea what that part of space holds for them. Aide points out that since they can't communicate with Earth, they have no choice but to take this course. On Earth, Augustine and Iris come across a crashed plane. Augustine goes inside the remains of the plane and discovers that there is a survivor. The man begs Augustine to help him, but Augustine realizes that the only help he can provide the man at this point is putting him out of his misery. He shoots the man. Devastated at what he's had to do, Augustine continues his journey with Iris and sets up camp to continue his transfusions. A flashback shows Augustine running into John, who has a daughter now. Augustine asks her if she's told the girl that he is her father. Joan tells him that if he wants the girl to know about him, he can come and introduce himself at any time. Augustine doesn't say anything, and Jean leaves. On the Ether, it is revealed that Sully is pregnant with a baby girl, and Aide is the father. The two are in a happy relationship. Back on Earth, Augustine and Iris are driving through a storm. When Iris points to some silhouette is in the distance. They are revealed to be camps, and Augustine decides to spend the night there. During the night, Augustine tells Iris that he wishes she would tell him anything at all about herself. She is busy drawing the face of a woman. Augustine says that he once knew a woman with a face like that. She was loud, unlike Iris, and had the most beautiful laugh. Suddenly, Iris looks up and asks him if he loved her. This is revealed to be a dream, and when Augustine wakes up, he discovers that the entire camp is sinking into the water beneath the ice. He rushes to get Iris out, but goes back to grab his transfusion machine. He manages to get it out, but the ice beneath them starts cracking fast. And as Augustine tries to get the snowmobile started, the ice under it cracks, causing Augustine to fall into the water with it. Under the water, Augustine is separated from the transfusion machine, and it sinks too far for him to reach. He swims back to the surface, miraculously not frozen to death, and realizes that his days are now numbered. Augustine and Iris continue their journey on foot, exposed to the elements and the wildlife. They get caught in a storm, surrounded by wolves. Augustine fires his gun and scares the wolves away, but in the process, he loses Iris. He can't see any tracks on the ground to track her down, and the storm becomes too intense for him to bear. He falls to the ground, but when the storm clears away, Iris finds him, and he hugs her tightly. After walking a little more, they finally arrive at the weather station. Using the weather station antenna, Augustine manages to establish contact with the Ether. He speaks to Sully, who is delighted to hear his voice. She asks him why no one on Earth is reaching out to them, and Augustine starts explaining the global catastrophe. Unfortunately, before he can even begin, the Ether, which is in the unmapped territory, runs into an asteroid field. The ship's radar and communication systems are damaged. After they clear the asteroid field, Mitchell assesses that they will have to step outside to perform the repairs. After thorough planning, Sully and Maya decide that they are going to be the ones performing the repairs. Since Maya has no experience in spacewalking, and Sully is pregnant with his baby, Aide decides to join them outside for supervision. The three astronauts head out and start performing the repairs. Sanchez plays some music to keep them entertained. As they get done and start heading back inside, the ship comes in the path of yet another asteroid field. The three astronauts barely hold on to the ship during all the commotion, but manage to survive. However, as they are heading inside, Maya notices drops of blood floating inside her suit. Aide discovers that she has a penetrative wound and is losing oxygen. He rushes to get her inside, while Sanchez rushes to the airlock with a med kit. The airlock takes too long to depressurize, and when they finally remove Maya's helmet, a lot of blood floats out, revealing that she has already lost too much. Sanchez still tries to save her, but in vain. She passes away. Next, the ship receives a message that was sent from Earth 10 days ago. It is revealed to be from Mitchell's wife. She tells him that their sons are sick, and everyone is being asked to evacuate. She appears distressed, and Mitchell becomes emotional looking at her. Afterward, he meets with Aide and tells him that he and Sully should take this ship back to K-23 to start over, but he will be taking a landing pod down to Earth to look for his wife. Next, Sanchez meets with Mitchell and tells him that he will join him. He wants to take Maya's body back to Earth and bury her. He reveals that he had a daughter who died very young, who would be about Maya's age today, and this is why he always saw Maya as his daughter. As Sanchez and Mitchell head toward Earth, Sully contacts Augustine to thank him for everything, including discovering K-23. She tells him that he is the reason that she became a scientist. He worked with her mother, Jean Sullivan, and gave her a moon rock once. Hence, it is revealed that Sully is Augustine's daughter. She refers to him as Dr. Lofthouse, and he tells her to call him Augustine. She in turn tells him that her first name is Iris. He replies that he knows, revealing that the little girl with him all this time was a hallucination of his daughter, and he knew that. Augustine asks Iris to describe what K-23 is like, and as she tells him about it, he gets transported to the planet in his imagination. He stands there with the little girl version of Iris. Finally, radio contact is lost, and Iris and Adi realize that it's just them now. They begin their long journey back to K-23, where they are somehow supposed to restart the human race. No attention is paid to the fact that the whole Adam and Eve model of starting a species is not very practical. The end.